A man now living in the afterlife who gave his name as Charles Morgan came through in a Leslie Flint seance. He described his passing from the body from a stroke and being surprised and delighted when his deceased mother came to him. This is the third in a series of videos that contain narrations of Charles Morgan's descriptions of finding himself out of his body, his reunion with his mother, and what his new life in the afterlife is like. Hello, I'm Dr. R. Craig Hogan, President of the Afterlife Research and Education Institute and Seek Reality Online. I'm the author of 8 books with the evidence you will come to the end of this life, but you will never die. Leslie Flint was a direct voice medium in the 20th century. A direct voice medium has the remarkable ability to sit in a darkened room, and voices come from an ectoplasmic voice box that forms on the medium's shoulder. Today we have over 2,000 recordings of both famous and ordinary people who spoke for as long as 45 minutes to people on this side of life sitting in the room with Flint. This video is the third in which a man named Charles Morgan spoke with Leslie Flint and the 2 people who recorded the seance who were sitting in the room with Flint. In this video, Morgan describes the afterlife world he and his mother are living in. This is a narration of the words Morgan spoke, taken from the recordings of the Leslie Flint seance.
"Now come to me," Mother says. "Come around. Come to me." She spoke to me as if I was a child, which in a sense under these circumstances I was. So I took hold of her hand, and the next thing I remember was that it was as if I was floating. Floating was the only word I could use through the ceiling, out into the air, high above the chimney tops. I seemed to be flying. I felt like Peter Pan. I know this must sound terribly stupid, but I seemed to be floating through the air. I was fascinated looking down underneath me at all the treetops and me going through the air like this, and for some reason all I could think about was Peter Pan and Wendy. I know this sounds so stupid, but I said to myself, this can't be true. I kept thinking, it's just a stupid dream and I should wake up. Anyway, I was floating away and I saw underneath me everything, the winding road, and then gradually coming to the open sea. I thought, goodness gracious, this is ridiculous. If I were dead and this was my mother, I wouldn't be floating over the earth like this. I wouldn't be interested. Anyway, we seemed as if we were floating or moving in the air for a very long time. And it seems if we were going over France, because I could see going over the channel and I could see the lights in the harbour. Anyway, I must have risen higher in the atmosphere or something, because everything below became invisible. I just couldn't see anything anymore. There was illumination, there was brightness, intense brightness, and I was floating and floating and floating from this billowy cloud that seemed to for ages and ages and ages. And then on the horizon I was seeing intense golden glow, and it seemed as if I was going further and further into this glow. It seemed to be permeating everywhere. And as I became more conscious of this, it began to take shape gradually. It was as if I was entering, well, I suppose you can only say it was the vast landscape of beautiful countryside. There were trees, there were hedges, there were bushes, and I could see that there were here and there dotted about little houses. They seemed to have a golden glow, seemed to be no other colour at all, but this golden glow. And then gradually it seemed as if we were going down, and as I went lower and lower, the golden glow seemed to lose itself. There were hedges and trees and houses. The grass took on a beautiful green sheen. The trees seemed to be green and brown and various shades, and the houses began to take more different shapes. I could see that the walls were white, and the doors and the window frames looked colourful and were painted various colours, presumably according to the individuals who lived there. And then gradually we seemed to come down into what was a pretty little house. There was a little sitting area in the garden, and there were flowers everywhere, profusions of flowers, all colours, all different types, all the flowers I remember that my mother and I had, which were the best gardens in other years. And I could see this pretty little house and lattice windows and its pretty little door. It was very like the house we had in my younger days when we were together, as a whole family in the countryside. The house my mother was particularly fond of, in which she brought up all the children, in which my father and all of us spent the happiest days of our lives. It was almost, you might say, a bed of roses house, and it was so familiar that I said, "Oh, Mother, this is so like the house we used to have in Northfield." She said, "Yes, dear, it is. It is the house we used to have in Northfield." I said, "Don't be stupid, Mother. How could it be the house if we're dead, and the house is up on earth if it's still in existence?" Mother said, "This is what we have created by the love that we had for the house and the happiness that we had in it and the family life that we shared there. This is it. This is the reality of it."
Charles Morgan had a wonderful reunion with his mother in the afterlife and went with her into the world they would now call his home. In the same way, you will have heartwarming reunions with all the people and pets you love and have a wonderful life with them in your new home in the afterlife. Links to the other videos with Morgan describing his reunion with his mother and his life in the afterlife are in the descriptions below.